Welcome back to Principles of Organismal Biology. This is the last class about plants. We have learned a lot, and today we're going to learn about plant defense. Right? So they grow, they reproduce, they photosynthesize, but how do they defend themselves? So I would like to remind you that the second exam is cumulative. It's going to have 40 questions, and it is available and it's going to be available on Friday, the 16th at noon. And it's going to have everything, all the material or some material from the first class until the week 8. By the end of this week, your Canvas should have all of your points. So please bring to my attention if any missing point is not reflecting in your Canvas by October 30th. I want to show you what I found in my garden. This is a larvae of a manduca, a species of manduca, that is a moth. Actually, this is the larvae of a moth that eats preferentially on tomato plants, but this is my potato plant, and I found this little voracious guy eating the leaves of my plant, and I left it there because I really want the population to be healthy, the population of this moth. So the moth eats in these plants, the plant of the tomato, or it belongs to the Solanaceae family. That is the nightshade family. So we have tomatoes, potatoes, the tobacco is also in that family. So tobacco, and it belongs to the genus Nicotiana. It's gonna produce nicotine, and this nicotine is gonna be synthesized by the plant, and that helps to repel any insect. However, these guys, these species of Manduca, Manduca sexta or other species, have evolved to eat this plant and process the nicotine. Not only the nicotine doesn't damage the insect, but also allows the insect to be protected, so other things won't eat it, and it will become this beautiful moth. So it's very clever the way that this larvae behaves. So plant defense have evolved for a long time. So the defense that the plants have to evolve was in response to the attacks that the herbivores were imposing on the plants. And we have evidence of that because there are fossils with evidence of herbivory. In all of these fossils, this was a paper published in 2008, you can see different types of signs that the herbivore was present eating the leaf, right? So herbivory is an all thing that plants have deal with it. Today we're gonna learn about the first line of defense and the plant's immune system, because actually plants have an immune system. There are two types of responses. One is the hypersensitive response, and the other one is the systemic acquired resistance. So we're going to learn about that and the advantage of having these two types of systems. And we're going to identify and get familiar with different examples of plant defenses and how they have evolved in different environments. And finally, we're going to discuss a little bit of the population level and community level type of defenses in these plants when they are under stressful conditions being eaten by predators. This is the plant's response that you could see in plants. Some of them, like in deserts, in the left, you can see a lot of plants, the Cylindropuntia, so a lot of cactus or cacti here. And what do they have in common? All of them have these spines. So think about this, in deserts, there is a scarcity of water, and these plants have a lot of water retained in their stem. So animals will be very happy to eat these plants, and these plants have evolved this defense of being covered by spines so that the animals cannot eat them, and they cannot eat or take the water from these plants. So plants use different type of mechanisms, and this on the right, we have other plants that produce some chemicals that will protect them from some predators. But all of them have the first line of defense. All of them share that, and that is really the epidermal level. So the epidermis, it's going to be this tissue that acts as barrier, and so anything, a pathogen, will have to go through this epidermis in order to get inside of the plants, right? So, but remember, we have stomata in plants. So they are these natural openings that allow the exchange of gases. So if the stomata are open, these are natural openings for pathogens as well. So they can enter, the pathogens can enter through the stomata or through wounds in these plants. And once they get inside, they can damage the plant. So the plant is going to have a defense, and that is recognized as a pathogen-associated molecular patterns, or PAMs. And that's the first line of immunodefense. And if the plant recognizes the attack, it's going to create, or that's going to trigger some responses in the plant. The response that the plant is going to generate is going to be specific depending on the pathogen that is triggering this response. So the PAM recognition results in the production of chemicals, antimicrobial chemicals, but it can also help with the synthesis of the cell wall, creating a tougher cell wall that it will prevent from more pathogens to entering into the plant. These immunoresponses that plants have are going to be triggering the immune system, and that it's going to select the type of gene or resistant R genes that are going to be involved in the response. Each R protein is activated by a specific effector. That means a different pathogen or different molecule that this pathogen is producing. So the R proteins in the plants get activated, or are going to be activating the defense in the plant by triggering a signal in the transduction pathways. And we are going to have two ways or two levels in which that happens. The first one is called hypersensitive response, and the second one is systemic acquired resistance. And those two are linked. We are going to learn how. In the first one, the hypersensitive response, what happens is that the pathogen is attacking the plant, right? This pathogen, thinking about in a bacteria, getting inside and start spreading into the plant. The plant, it's very smart in a way that it isolates these cells and prevents the pathogen from spreading. So it sacrifices some of the cells around the pathogen so that it can block the spread of the pathogen. And it also can produce enzymes to attack the pathogen. So this is the hypersensitive response, and that includes the tissue death. It also can increase the cell wall. As I was mentioning, it will increase the cell wall to confine this pathogen. Here is a representation of what happens in this hypersensitive response. We have the pathogen that is going to produce an effector protein. This protein, it's going to be recognized by a protein from the plant, the R protein. And when this effector is recognized, it triggers these pathways, the signal transduction pathways, to allow for the right response. And as I mentioned, it could be the death. It can produce certain chemicals depending on what pathogen is being present. And then we'll have the death of the cells around this pathogen. So that will block the pathogen, but also we can have an increase of the toughness of the cell walls. So that will prevent more pathogens to attack this plant. What other things happened, or the next thing that it happens is that we'll have a release of a signal, and this signal is going to be carried around the plant, and that is going to be triggering the systemic acquired resistance. This systemic acquired resistance is going to allow the plant to respond even when the pathogen is far away. For example, now this leaf that is not being attacked by the pathogen is acquiring certain type of resistance. So it's ready for the attack. So the pathogen is spreading this part of the plant, now it's producing chemicals and it's ready for this attack. The very important thing that happens in this systemic acquired resistance is that it's going to create a long-lasting response, and it's going to require the synthesis of the methylsalicylic acid. So the methylsalicylic acid is the secondary metabolite that is synthesized during the infection, and it's going to be transported through the phloem. And as we have covered in the past, the phloem is allowing the movement of photosynthase, but other things. So one of these other things is this methylsalicylic acid. And it moves it from the part where it is being produced, and that's the tissue that is being under attack. And now it's going to be transported to other remote areas, and it's going to be converted into salicylic acid. Then the salicylic acid is going to trigger the defense system for a rapid response if there are more pathogens attacking this plant. Salicylic acid might sound familiar to you, and that's because we use it in aspirin to reduce fever. And so plants use it to trigger the immune system. However, some pathogens have evolved a counterattack. And this is one example. It is the global spread of Huanglongbing, and that is a disease that is actually spreading in California in the citrus plants that we have, the oranges that we grow in California. This pathogen, it's a bacteria, is a Candidatus liberobacter asiaticus. This is being transferred by the psyllid, the citrus psyllid, Diaphorina citri. This psyllid, our jumping lace insect, it's the vector of this Candidatus liberobacter asiaticus. And what happens is that this bacteria is growing into the phloem. And if you have something growing in the phloem in plants, what is going to happen is that it's going to block some very important functions in the plant, right? Now they cannot transport photosynthase, for example. The way that they do that is by the bacteria. What it does is that it activates salicylate hydroxylase. It produces a salicylate hydroxylase, and what that does, this enzyme is going to degrade salicylic acid. So the plant is not going to be able to respond to the attack of these bacteria, and it can be devastating, and it's a major concern. And the government is putting a lot of money trying to investigate alternatives or solutions to this problem. Plants also have other type of defenses, and we can categorize them in physical defenses, such as the presence of thorns or trichomes, or chemical defenses, and they can be chemicals that are distasteful. So herbivores are not interested in eating something that tastes bad. But also it could be toxic, and it could be in some cases deadly. We're going to learn these different type of defenses against herbivores. One is at the molecular level, at cellular level, tissue level, organ level, and community or population and community level as well. For the molecular level defenses, we can think in plants that can produce some different compounds, and these are usually involving terpenoids or phenolic compounds. and in other cases alkaloids, and they can deter attackers from eating or from sucking the sap of the plant. A lot of these are very important for humans because they have medical or medicinal applications. So there is a lot of studies about the properties of plants because, as the aspirin, we have found a lot of remedies in plants. One of these examples is Atropa belladonna. In this plant, well, Atropa belladonna produces a chemical that is used to defend itself, and it is being used, it produces atropina, and that chemical can be used as muscle relaxant, and we use it to dilate the pupil in the eye. So ophthalmologists often use that to dilate the pupil. So that's a chemical that is being used. There is another type of, I mentioned before that several plants of the Solanaceae family produce nicotine. And so nicotine can cause some problems in insects. But in the case of the tobacco, it can function as a stimulant in humans. This plant here, foxglove or digitalis species, it's going to produce a chemical that is being used for heart rate or control the heart rate and arrhythmia. There are other plants that can be very deadly. One of them is Strychnos toxifera, and that is the source of these chemicals, including the curare. This chemical or this plant is ground and used by some tribes. So they grind this plant, and then they use this substance to cover the darts that they use to hunt animals. And what that happens once that they hit the animal, it will cause a cardiac arrest and respiratory failure. And in some cases, it can cause brain damage. So once that they hit the animal after, I don't know how, I think it's a couple of minutes or several minutes that they will take to start to see this effect or experience these effects, and then the animal can be easily hunted when it's in the ground. Another type of defense are the cellular level defenses, and this is when the plant is producing some crystals in the inside of the cell, and these are called raphides or raphidios, which are needle-like type of crystals, and you can find them in this plant. For example, Dieffenbachia or Domkane is also called mother's-in-law's tongue, and there have been cases in which little kids eat the plant or have eaten the plant, and these needle-like crystals really injure the mouth of these kids, and they can be temporarily, they can lose the speech temporarily. Other type of defense at the cellular level are trichomes. Remember, trichomes is an extension of the epidermal cells, and they look actually kind of velvety. Some of them are soft for us, but for insects, they can be deadly. And look at this insect, this bedbug, walking on a leaf, and this leaf has recurved trichomes shown in green in here, and you can see how these trichomes can really injure or trap the insect, and in some cases really pierce the insect right here. Hopefully you can see this insect has been pierced by this trichome. So for us, the trichomes look beautiful, velvety, but they actually are a very efficient defense against some of these predators. At the tissue level, we can have the thickness of certain cells, and these cells are, we can think about the leaves and how in some plants they have very, very thick leaves, and that is the result of the toughness of the cell walls in these cells. And they are basically increase in cellulose and lignin, or that's the result of increased cellulose and lignin in these cells. Examples of that can be the olive leaves, or the olive tree that has these thick leaves. Oaks, a scrub oak is one example. Not all of the oaks are going to have these really thick leaves, but some of them will have. And the oleander leaf as well have very thick leaves. At the organ level, we can have the whole leaf. In the previous example, we have a tissue, which was at the epidermal level. We can have the increase in this, the cell wall. But in this case, the whole leaf can become modified to defend the plant. And this can be an example of modified leaves that are now spines, or bristles, or stems that form thorns, or bark that forms prickles. These are examples of thorns, and these are modified stems, so it's not actually a modified leaf. In cactus, we have modified leaves, which are actually spines, if you remember your last class. And all of these things in this prickly pear are modified leaves, these spines. And if we zoom in, we'll see that these spines are very difficult to pull out because they have these bristles that prevent them from pulling them out of your skin. At the organ level defense, we have also modified leaves that they look like they have been eaten already. So animals or insects that see these already eaten plants, they are like, okay, I'm gonna just pass on these and look for another one that still has a lot of the good thing. So leaves like Travesia palmata, or snowflake plant, looks like this, and it looks like it has been eaten already, right? But it hasn't. It's one of the defense that we think that plants have evolved to trick animals. Another one that is super cool is this mimicry. Some plants produce a structure that mimics the insect eggs. So when insects locate eggs that have been placed in plants, they try to find another plant or another part of the plant, because they don't want their babies to compete with other species or other babies of the same species. So they are going to pass on this plant, right? But this is not an egg from an insect. It's actually produced by the plant. And that is the example of a passion flower, or a leaf of the passion flower plant. Another type of defense is population level defense. This is even cooler because now we're talking about plants warning other plants about the attack. In this case, one plant can release some chemicals, and that can be volatile compounds that they get into the air, and another plant receives that, and it's receiving the warning, and now it's activating the immune system to combat the potential future attack of a given pathogen. So that's a population level defense. And one example that has been documented, it's in the bamboo plants. Another one, which is the community level defense, involves the larvae that was eating my potato plant. So these larvae, as I was mentioning before, will eat plants in the Solanaceae family, and they will process this nicotine to actually, the nicotine will confer defense against other predators that will eat these larvae. However, it doesn't confer resistance against some of the wasps. And what is cooler is that the plant will produce a chemical to attract the wasp. The wasps are parasitoids, and they are going to come here and deposit the eggs on these plants. They're going to deposit the eggs on these larvae. Hopefully you can visualize the larvae right here, and it's covered of cocoons, and these cocoons will later emerge, and the wasp will emerge. So they feed on these moth larvae, and this is a type of community level defense involving another species that will come and attack this predator. And which is fascinating to me is that the plant will actually will be releasing the chemical that will bring this wasp. An attack that we're having currently of big concern in California is the gold-spotted oak borrower beetle. Oaks usually have this oak borrower beetle. The gold-spotted is present in some oaks in North America, but not in California. So this is an invasive insect that has been recently spotted in oaks in the last few years, and it's spreading rapidly. It's very deadly. It's killing the plant or the tree, and it creates these tunnels. Hopefully you can see the tunnel here. And if you do a cross-section of your tree, you can see here, this is the first year growth, and you can probably see some of these different rings, but look at the holes around the tree or in this region of the tree. This is a question for you. Californian oak trees are suffering high mortality rates due to an invasive borrower beetle. Their larvae make tunnels on the trunk as they feed on the tree, causing its death. What tissue are they most likely affecting? A, leaves, blade and petiole. B, epidermis, trichomes and stomata. C, roots, root cap and apical meristem. D, ground tissue, parenchyma. E, vascular, xylem and phloem. Well, the right answer is E. They are affecting the vascular tissue, and mainly they're affecting the phloem. Remember, the phloem is in the outside, and it's very important because without the photosynthase, the products of the photosynthesis being transported all around in the tree will die of starvation. So that's what's happening in this case. Well, that was all for today's class. This is all for the whole semester. I really enjoyed teaching you guys, and thanks everybody who came to my office hours, everybody who emailed me, and all of your nice emails that I received over the last 2 months. They were very helpful in these difficult times. I wish you the best and good luck in your exam. And feel free to email me if you have any question, or if you just want to learn more about the opportunities of research in our department. Thank you and have a good day.